Port St. Lucie.
The opinions on this program are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WPSL. WPSL does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WPSL. Legal questions? Ask a lawyer. Give us a call at 340-1590, 340-1590 here at the studios of WPSL. And Ask a Lawyer with your host, Attorney Stuart M. Address.
Good morning, Treasure Coast. Happy Friday. I hope everybody is looking forward to a nice weekend. Before we start, I have a little public service announcement, and then I have a bone to pick. The public service announcements, y'all may recall several weeks back we had a little temporary episode of Ask a Rabbi. Mm-hmm. Well, tonight's a special night for her and my congregation, Congregation H. Chaim in Port St. Lucie. We are receiving our charter tonight from the Union for Reform Judaism. So we are hoping for a very large crowd, and we invite everybody here on the Treasure Coast, whether you're affiliated or unaffiliated. If you're affiliated with another temple, that's okay. Just come join us for the night. If you're unaffiliated, come check us out. Everybody's welcome. Single, married, young and old, interfaith couple, gay, lesbian, transgender. Everybody is welcome here, and it's going to be a very interesting and fun night with Congregation H. Chaim, which is just under 3 years old now, receiving its charter from the Union for Reform Judaism. So that's 7:30, and if you need to, just you can either look it up on Facebook. It's across the street from Met Stadium. Not too hard to find. Anyway, we were going to talk about the conclusion, sort of sexual harassment and other forms of discrimination, mm-hmm. and we may very well still get mm-hmm. there.
And callers might steer the conversation differently as well.
That's right.
It happens.
I have a bone to pick. And I have a feeling that there are other people out there, maybe everybody, who has at one time or another had this problem. If you have, give us a call. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what we might be able to do about it. I have some ideas. The problem is, as a result of calls that have come into my office, as a result of personal experiences, as a result of comments that friends have made to me, it seems that increasingly health insurance companies are practicing medicine.
Of course they are.
And care is being denied, mm-hmm. whether it is for a pharmaceutical, whether it is for a test, whether it is for a surgical mm-hmm. procedure, mm-hmm. whether it is for hospitalization.
I get that letter that says not medically necessary.
Right.
Love that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what can be done when you get that denial letter. And even more important, what has been happening over the past decade or two to our healthcare industry, way before Obamacare, where insurance companies seem
my world crumbled when Obamacare kicked in.
Yeah. Well, not for this particular problem. You know, where insurance companies seem to be practicing medicine. And what do I mean by that? I know that when I was a youngster just out of law school, fresh-eyed and optimistic, they had basically one or two types of health insurance policies. Either you had an HMO, mm-hmm. or you had a 80-20 plan. Mm-hmm. You paid 20%, mm-hmm. medical facility paid 80% at the discounted rate that was negotiated. And it seems to me that back then, there weren't as many denials of care. Now,
the other thing is the cost of care. That 20% today would kill you.
That is true.
Back then, you could pay your part.
And since insurance companies are for-profit entities, they have a motivation for profit. And where they can deny coverage, whether it's in healthcare or, frankly, any other form of insurance, very often a lot of them do try to deny coverage. And the thought process is what percentage of people are actually going to fight back, and how long will they fight?
It's difficult, though, because if you'd like to get a question answered, you are on the phone. This is my personal experience. And can I name the company?
You sure can.
Humana.
Okay.
I'm on the phone. I'm on hold. I'm listening to their lovely hold music. Someone gets on the line, and I explain my problem. Now I'm back on hold, and I'm being transferred to someone else. That someone else leaves me on hold for quite some time. I'll answer the phone, and I can barely hear them
And
now.
you got to explain your problem again.
And I have to, right. And now I'm still not to the right place. And I'm put on hold again. And during that episode of hold, I get disconnected.
Well, that does happen, and it happens not just with insurance companies, unfortunately.
I mean, and it's almost like I have to go, okay, I got to call Humana. I need a couple of hours to get this call in because I know it's the same routine every time.
And there is a certain percentage that they've all investigated all this stuff as to how many people will just give up. It's the same reason.
They're breaking you. That's what they're doing.
In a supermarket, why fancy sugary stuff is right at the cash register for an impulse buy. Mm-hmm. There's all sorts of psychological studies on all of this stuff, on all sorts of sales. And it's true.
Yeah, sure. They'll spend money on that, but they won't pay my claim.
Right, exactly. So what has happened now in terms of you're dissatisfied with a denial decision? Generally, you get a notice, and it tells you about your appeal rights. And typically, not exclusively, you have two internal appeals. One with a company that is usually farmed out, hired by the insurance company to do the first appeal. And then if you get another denial, you have an internal appeal with the actual insurance company. And then if you get another denial, if you're still willing to fight and alive, you get an external appeal that goes to a company completely unaffiliated with the insurance company to review it. By the time you get to the external appeal, really, what has happened? Not just that people have given up, but let's say you haven't given up, and let's say you get to that external appeal, and let's say you actually win it. Okay? By that time, the medication that was prescribed, you haven't been receiving, mm-hmm. and maybe you've gone to what your doctor thinks is not quite as good of an alternative, but they've already given you.
Well, sometimes they give you some samples in the interim, but
maybe
that only lasts so long.
That's right. If it was a surgical procedure, well, you haven't had it done, and who knows what complications may have arose as a result.
Okay.
If it's a hospitalization and you've been told you must leave the premises.
You're being kicked out.
Well, you've left.
Gotta go.
You've left. You've now won your appeal. What are you going to do? Go back? You may have had other complications by then. And all of these factors seem to be sort of built in to the appeal process. So I guess I finally, with certain things that have occurred and I've heard about, in the past several days, the straw has broke the camel's back, at least in my mind. And, there was a great movie. I think I even made a note of it here. It was Peter Finch, and he was playing Howard Beale in the 1970s movie Network. And he said, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore." Well, I'm wondering how many people are mad as hell and don't want to take it anymore.
But they feel they feel helpless.
But might not know exactly what to do, or might find the appeal process daunting. Let me tell you something. Even for a lawyer, it is daunting. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about what your options are under current law, and what might need to be done if there's a grand well of support and a movement started, just sort of like the kids at Parkland started the movement again on gun control, and while nothing has happened yet, not think of substance, a couple little things. Who knows what might happen with the next Congress. Anyway, like I said, you have two internal appeals. Very often, your healthcare provider will process those for you because they want you to get the treatment that they've prescribed.
That depends.
Well, it does, but and very often they know the keywords and the buzzwords,
Yeah.
and
Sometimes you can't even get them to fill out the paperwork for a prior authorization.
Well, that is true. I've run into that as well.
There are certain doctors that are kind of working for the insurance company.
Well, if the doctor wants
So
you
to
to get
speak.
certain care, I think they want you to get the care and they want to get paid for the care. So, I'm not so sure about that part. But there are actually, if you Google it, there are companies that specialize in assisting people with appealing denials of care. I actually didn't know that until within the last 48 hours when I was doing a little bit of research. There are several companies, some of them for-profit companies where you have to pay a fee, and several of them non-for-profit companies where you don't pay a fee, and they will either help guide you through an appeal process, or they will handle it for you and draft it and with your approval, process it and send it. So it's just something I think that y'all out there should know, that the next time there is a denial of care, whatever it is, you may not have to just sit back and tolerate it. Now, there is another thing that has recently been brought to my attention, where you have the right to get a copy of all the documents that have been utilized to deny you care, whether it's for medicine, surgery, anything really. You also have the right to the names and the credentials of all the people who have been involved in the denial of care. Now, I had a phone call, and there's a very interesting fact scenario on this particular point that occurred, and I mentioned what should be done, and we'll see whether or not it ends up being successful. You get a call, and somebody says, I've been denied care, and, I mentioned, you have a right to this, that, and the other thing. And they send a communication to their insurance company, and the initial response is, we don't have to provide that to you. Well, okay, what do you do? So I typically don't read from statutes while here on the radio, but I want to read two short things as we get into our discussion. This is from what is called the ERISA statute. It's the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, federal statute that deals with insurance and not exclusively, but in particular health care. And any of you, have a pencil or pen and want to write this down, that's fine. If not, you can always call my office at 781-8003. But you have statutes which are in the U.S. Code. And then what happens is administrative agencies are delegated the responsibility of preparing regulations to administer that statute. Those are found in the Code of Federal Regulations. So, the ERISA statute is at 29, Code of Federal Regulations, and then a whole thousands of regulations. Okay, so which one am I going to talk about? Don't worry if you don't have a pen or paper. You can Google this too. But it's 29 CFR, Code of Federal Regulations, Section 2560.503-1, parens H. Yes, that's lawyers for you. And there are two subsections that I want to mention. One is H, parens 2, parens Roman numeral 3. I know.
Making it easy
confusing.
to find, right?
That's right. and that section is the section that deals with documents. And in short, it says that you have the right, quote, upon request and free of charge, reasonable access to and copies of all documents, records, and other information relevant to the claimant's claim for benefits, end quote. So if they ever tell you they don't have to give it to you, they're wrong.
So every time you go fill a prescription that's denied, that's a claim.
That's a claim.
Okay, so they should have record of them getting it.
Right.
And them saying no.
and why they said no and what documents they're relying
And
upon.
basically, who said no?
Well, and that's the next section. The next subsection, and again, don't worry about writing it, it's H3, Roman numeral 4. And that's the part about who is involved in denying your benefits. And that section says that the insurance company is required to, quote, provide for the identification of medical or vocational experts whose advice was obtained on behalf of the plan in connection with a claimant's adverse benefit determination, end quote. What does that mean in English? It's really actually simple. It means anybody who has been involved in giving input on whether your care should be approved or denied. If it's denied, they have to be identified, and their credentials have to be provided. Because, and this is not the typical, but it does happen. What happens if it's, let's say, it's the initial appeal? And the initial appeal is delegated to a company that hires a minimum wage person to review the materials and look for buzzwords. And if the buzzwords aren't there, it gets denied. Well, if you've requested the documents and the identification of the persons involved, and you find out that it was a minimum wage kid who has no credentials of any type, I have a feeling that denial may be changed to an approval very quickly. Because you then have obviously another appeal, and you can use that against them. And then you have the external appeal. And if the external appeal doesn't work, there is additional recourse. It's not one that most people take, but it's a lawsuit against your insurance company. And it's called a first-party claim. Why? Because the insurance contract is between the insurance company and you. Even if it's an employer plan, even if it's from healthcare.gov, you are the insured. So if you sue your own insurance company, guess what? There is an attorney's fees provision in the statute. And for that reason, lawyers that handle these types of claims will typically take them on a contingency fee. So you don't have to pay anything unless there's a recovery. What do you have to pay if there's a recovery? The attorney applies to the court for attorney's fees, or if the insurance company cries uncle, basically negotiates with the insurance company for a payment. And that's what the lawyer gets, and you get your care.
I was going to say you get what you need, and
Right.
the lawyer gets paid.
That's right.
So
That's right. So, there is a lot to be done, but it is burdensome, it is cumbersome, it is time-consuming, and there are plenty of people who don't have the time, or, no offense to anybody, honestly, the intestinal fortitude to fight like that.
Exactly.
There are other things in life. And depending upon how important the denial of care was, you may decide rationally to just let it go. If doctor prescribes prescription A, you get a denial, and he says, prescription B is equal, it's just as good, and they approve it. All right, it wasn't fair, but no harm, no foul. Just go on with your life and live it.
I was just in a doctor's office this week, and the prescription that we're trying to get, the doctor, it was actually not the doctor, but the nurse practitioner, who said, well, they probably don't have a deal with that company. And I looked at him like, this is the thing that works. This is what we would like to
Right.
continue using. When we switched from this insurance to this insurance, they don't have a deal with that company.
That's correct. And now I'll deviate again.
But they still make the prescription that works.
It's just
Could you
they put
give
it at
it
a
to
different
us?
level. If you look at the pharmaceutical portion of your benefits, usually every insurance company says this is a level 1 drug, level 2, level 3, level 4, whatever. Okay? Level 1's no problem, 2's no problem, 3, you got to get prior authorization. 4, there are quantity controls. 5, you got to pay a bigger part other than your normal copay. All this stuff. So I personally had a little surprise recently. It's still the beginning of the year. And about 3 weeks ago, I needed the prescription for the first time in 2018. Now, in 2017 and 16 and 15, my copay for this prescription was sort of like $30 a month.
Okay.
And if I had met my out-of-pocket, it got to be $0 near the end of the year. So imagine my surprise
when they wanted your all of your out-of-pocket at once.
When they were going to fill a 3-month supply, and I was told it's $960.
Yeah.
So I assume
you're like, how did that happen?
I assume it has to be a mistake. So I call Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida. There, I mentioned one.
Yeah,
too.
we're naming names today.
And they say to me, well, gee, you changed your plan this year, which I did. And that drug is now a level 5 drug, not a level 4 drug. And I said, wait a second. You know, when we're looking at all these plans, you have this little, device on your website that lets you determine whether the same doctors are on the plan, same prescriptions
and
are
they
covered.
do. When they help you with that, you tell them what you're taking.
And they say it's covered, but
And
they don't say it's a different level.
They fit you to a yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, that's a little bait and switch, too, maybe for another story. But here's another little trick of the trade that I've learned. I wasn't about to go pay $950.
Right, because you didn't budget that, I'm sure.
Right. But on the other hand, this was a particular medication that is a one of a kind. And it's the only one that has been found to work. Folks, I happen to have diabetes and I have diabetic neuropathy, and it's Lyrica, okay? You can't really just go substitute it for something else. So I went to the manufacturer's website, and guess what I found? And you find this quite often if you check. I found a discount card good for a year. So the $900, let's say, breaks down to $300 a month. Well, that $300 a month became $78 with that card. Didn't cost me anything. All I had to do was...
But now let me ask you this. Will your Blue Cross Blue Shield pick up a portion of that eventually? Or will you lose the discount?
No. The $78 was now my copay to Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Okay.
Because now the manufacturer was kicking in the rest of it
and
to the insurance company.
Giving them a discount.
Right. I'm sure that's true too. So another sort of a trick of the trade is if you find that a prescription is too expensive for you, even if it's not denied, we're on a different topic for a second. If you find a prescription is too expensive for you, the first thing you should do, Google it. Go to the manufacturer's website. If it's Lyrica, Google Lyrica. Find out who makes it. Go to that manufacturer's website and look for discount cards. And very often you will find them and they're usually good for a year, and sometimes you can renew them. And why do the manufacturers do this? It's not because they love us. It's because they want you to have their drug, and they want you to become, well, not dependent in that technical sense, but they want you to always want that drug when you need that kind of a drug. And they want you to develop brand loyalty. And so that maybe when you have to pay a little bit more, you're still willing to pay for it. It's business. But you can get extraordinary discounts, even if you have insurance. If you find that a particular medication is expensive, go look it up before you panic, before you call the doctor and say, you got to switch me to something else. Very often, you can get the prescription you want with very little effort, unlike when you have a denial of care we've been talking about. It's just sort of something I've learned that passing out to everybody. It's really simple, and I would really suggest that you all use it anytime you find a medication that's more than a little bit of money. You might find that from the manufacturer you can get that prescription for free for a year, or for really nominal price, or if it's a really expensive drug, and you can probably get a pretty big discount. So check that out. But that leads us back to the normal coverage of the day, which is the insurance company denials. And again, folks, you don't have to listen to me do a monologue. Call us, please. I have to believe that even if there's only 10 people out there listening to my voice, that it's happened to you. This happens to everybody.
It just happened to me this week.
And you don't have to give your name, and you don't have to name names. But, if, like Peter Finch said, if you're mad as hell and don't want to take it anymore, the first step is to complain about it. All right. So it seems to me that what may be necessary right now is a concerted effort to let insurance companies and to let legislators know that this is not the way the system should work. Now, we have lots of problems with our healthcare system. Lots of problems that have existed
I think
for decades.
the more they try to fix it, the more they mess it up, actually.
Fix one thing, mess up the law of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Okay? Lots of things that can be fixed. But here, when it comes to actually denying somebody care, and you may have to go without something, whether it's medication or service or physical therapy, or you're cut off early and you're not quite ready, and now you're fighting over whether it's still medically necessary. This is something very often that can't wait.
I have a good one for you.
All right.
A few years back, family member needs open heart surgery.
That's a pretty big one.
We arrive at the hospital, do all the, the processing. They go first thing in the morning, we're going to take you into surgery, go have dinner. Well, on the way to the dinner, we get a phone call. And the insurance company needs 3 more days to think about it because they believe that it's elective surgery.
Right.
Now,
elective, right.
Yeah, you elect to have open heart surgery.
Have your chest cracked open.
But then the doctors had to put their heads together and figure out, well, how would we, this person needs this. They're basically dying. So they admitted him through emergency.
And you fight it out later.
And then, right.
Life or death situation, obviously.
Through emergency, they couldn't deny any of it, or they couldn't make us wait.
Right.
So we carried on. But
even doctors...
Elective.
Right. Even a lot of doctors, they know the tricks of the trade. Just like, look, lawyers know the tricks of their trade. Plumbers know the tricks of their trade. Radio personalities know the tricks of their trade.
Oh, there's no tricks here.
Congressmen know the tricks of their trade, that's for sure.
Yes.
And sometimes they're really tricks. But anyway, sometimes doctors will know how to help you. Hospitals will know how to help you. Something gets caught in bureaucracy, and they know other ways to play the system, and it's unfortunate that needs to be done, but it does, and they do it.
I've even, because of all the different denials, you get on the phone and you go, look, here's the thing. We need this medication. You can either figure out how to fill it, or I'll be taking this person to the emergency room. Which would you rather pay for?
Well, no, they're not that logical. They're not that logical. And for those of you few of you who may actually watch on YouTube, I'm raising my hands like an idiot right now and shaking them because it's not true. They're not that logical. I don't know. I'll think about that.
Discrimination, maybe. Starbucks.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe we can get to that a little bit quickly. Now, what was I saying? I was raising my hands like crazy, and I was, they're not always that logical. If they were, they would pay for things like bariatric surgery. Why? Yeah, it's $20,000 or more.
Today.
Right. But if you pay for it, at least with certain forms of bariatric surgery, the patient will come out with no diabetes. How much money are you going to save insurance company
in the long run
with no diabetes?
Yeah, less problems.
With other forms of bariatric surgery, the patient may come out with improved diabetes, or his high cholesterol may now be normal cholesterol. High blood pressure may now be normal blood pressure. All sorts of complications of life, what they call comorbidities, may either decrease or disappear if you perform the one procedure that you're denying as elective. So it's out of your own pocket. And look, this is why people that complain about the healthcare industry in so many different forms all have good points. And I don't want to get into a whole big political discussion, but where I disagree is where you decide to blame Obamacare or the Affordable
Well,
Health Care
the
Act.
thing is, they've all had their shot, and nobody's gotten it right.
That's right.
So,
I mean, things have been improved in many respects. Other things have gotten worse. Somebody has to, take another shot, and the only way it's ever really going to happen, and I continue to stand by this, I said this on a prior show, is if people compromise in Congress and learn to work together.
yeah. I don't see that if you have an insurance policy that you have health care. You just have
the opportunity for health care.
You just have a policy. Yeah, but a lot of the policies you may be covered, but you can't afford the rest of it.
Well, that's right. There are many policies depending. Now they call them bronze, silver, gold, platinum, bare bones. You may have a policy that may help you if you need, heart surgery, but if you have diabetes or cholesterol or break an arm, you're right. It may be all out of your pocket.
Exactly.
Those are the bare bones policies, and look, that was designed honestly in Obamacare that certain things would now have to be covered. It helps, but it's not perfect. Okay, Bulldog. Hello. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing okay.
Sir, I just want to ask you a question on both ends of your topic. One I'm going to go to Canada for the drugs.
Take me with you. I love Montreal.
No, everybody's saying that's where they're getting their drugs, and then surgery, like hip surgery and everything, they're going to Mexico.
Je ne parle français?
Yeah.
I just said I don't speak French.
In peu.
You're right. A lot of people do get, some of their pharmaceuticals from Canada, or go to Mexico for certain types of procedures. Look, and there are a lot of people that go to other countries as well. And believe it or not, there are a lot more people who come to the U.S.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying is that you were talking about Lyrica. I just happened to do an online search. You can get that in Canada all day long. I don't know about the quality control and things like that.
All right, that's a very good point. And let me tell you something about that. I'm not going to get into the legalities of importing the drugs and all, and whether they come in unmarked packages and all that sort of stuff. But when you are dealing with a major developed country like Canada, you don't really have to worry as long as you're dealing with a reputable pharmacy. You're not going to have to worry that the drug is, stale or out of date. There are drugs, okay? You're going to deal with Mexico? I don't know. Also depends who you're going to deal with.
Now in Mexico, they do have some clinics that actually do, like I know in this case that I'm talking about is hip replacement.
Right.
And, it's just one of those things. It was the cost, the economics of it.
You're right, and I'm gonna do another personal story very briefly. You stay on the line, Bulldog. We'll continue. This is when Bubby should call. Bubby Address should call. No, please don't do this to me again. Anyway, my mother, Bubby Address.
Your mother, yes, I know.
She is Canadian. She was born in Montreal, which is why I love Montreal so much, and she has friends still in Canada, and one of them has a son that is a dentist of types. They have different types of dentists, and I don't remember the exact name for this one because it's a little confusing. But this is a dentist who does bridges. And when she needed a couple times a new bridge, the cost here with Medicare and a Medicare supplement was just not affordable. So, okay, she went to Canada. She made a lovely trip, paid the airfare and everything. And she got her bridge work done, and it was still less expensive and a nice trip to Canada to see friends and family.
So bridge work at a vacation,
too.
Right,
exactly. All for one. And you come back at a lesser expense. And look,
that was
it's
exactly
true.
The same situation. They took a nice trip to Mexico, got a hip replacement, spent a couple days in rehab, and then, flew back like no problem.
I don't know how they flew back, Bulldog, because I almost had to have a hip replacement, but I had a miracle drug that has really helped me get 90% better. And I was wondering whether I was going to be in rehab for 2-3 weeks. I don't think I'd be flying 2 days later.
Well, no, see, let me qualify here in that it was a replacement of a previous. It was just one part that was out. I don't know what part it is or whatever. So they just replaced that, and he had already gotten used to the hip replacement. It was just this plastic thing or whatever. I think it's a socket or something, but whatever it was, I mean, it was phenomenally cheaper than in the United States.
I'd be scared, though, if there were any kind of complications. To have complications
you want to be
in
able
Mexico.
to go back. Yeah, you want to be able to go back to the provider for follow-up care. And I think you have a good point. And I think people do and should take advantage of things like that. But I don't know that in and of itself, honestly, is a problem with our healthcare system. I think there are people that come here for reasons, or we go to other places for reasons. If Sweden has the best sex change surgeries, you're going to go to Sweden, okay? Insurance or not. But
been there, done that.
Really? A little bit too much information. TMI.
Yeah, there you go. No, but the other thing is, too, is that it's becoming a monopoly because how many insurers are pulling out of states. I mean, if you go to Iowa, I don't know that you have one or zero, and how in the heck do you get insurance if you don't have competition?
That is an excellent point. That is another problem with the current, formula of the insurance industry. And I guess if I was a medical person other than a lawyer, I probably could do a 13-episode, radio series on this alone and go through all the problems with the healthcare industry. I think, there are many. And look, I will say what I've heard many people say before, and I agree with. With all the problems we have in our healthcare system, I still believe it's the best in the world. I honestly do. And with all the problems we have in the way our government operates, I still believe we have the best in the world, and rather be here than anywhere else.
I just think the healthcare system is fine. It's how we pay for it that's kind of messed up.
Well, how we pay for it and how we get coverage or to get denied coverage. I mean, that's
what about the proposal for Medicare for everybody one?
But then who pays for that?
Bulldog, I can't go there. That's a giant political discussion.
But Medicare for everyone would soon then become Medicaid for everyone, and then it's a whole different animal.
And I wouldn't even hold myself out as an expert on all of that. Yeah.
No, none of us are.
Even the people who are making the votes, the decisions, aren't experts on that. Unfortunately, they rely upon lobbyists.
It's hard for them, though, because they've got, Cadillac coverage. It's very hard for them to even understand how it really is.
That's true. Well, sometimes,
because
you got to live with the masses.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing about it is that people are more and more foregoing paying the penalty on their taxes for not signing. Well, no, I guess that's back in the day. Now it's waived. But
right, at least for now.
They were just not signing up for it.
That's true. And one of the benefits, though, of, the current system is with at least the requirement for insurance companies to offer plans that have certain basic elements of coverage, there were people I know personally, there were people who were previously opting to take their chances and go to the emergency room who got coverage at very low premiums that they could afford, and at least they have some health care coverage.
I was told I fell into the Obamacare black hole.
Well, no, and what they do is, you may be familiar with this hospital, Lawnwood, which they can't, they'll take anybody, and that's what they're falling back on.
I hear you. I guess my big argument, at least for today, is when people are denied coverage, when they think they have coverage, and they got to fight back, and to at least communicate, number one, that there are ways to fight back, and two, that to get rid of this problem, there are hundreds of other problems in the healthcare system, But to get rid of this problem probably requires a groundswell of opposition to one single issue, and that is insurance companies making medical decisions. All right, even if they so-called go to a panel of doctors, they're not your doctors. And so they're looking for buzzwords.
Well, they're working
and
for the
keywords.
insurance company.
Right, until you get to that last external
yeah,
appeal.
Yes.
Okay? Yeah. But by then, it's usually too late.
And depending how ill you are.
Right.
And that's really not fair.
That's right, Dan. They're working for the insurance companies. They have a motive. If they don't, make enough money for the insurance companies and deny enough care, next year the insurance company will sign a contract with some other
or they don't get their bonus.
Well, true too. So
let's just hope, and I'll leave you with this.
All right.
Let's just hope we don't get dragged into an ambulance to a hospital that does not accept our medical insurance, or we don't have any, and then we're going to get stuck with this huge bill, and who's going to pay that, right?
Well, you're absolutely right,
So
and I'll say one thing on that, which another problem I have with our system. I guess go a little bit off topic, but I don't care. I'll nag at the healthcare system today. If you are uninsured and you go into the hospital, they got to take care of you, and that's wonderful. Mm-hmm. Then you get your bill. Your bill is at the full price of what the hospital charges. Nobody else pays that price.
Right.
The only people they charge that price to are the people who can't afford to pay it. Because if you have insurance, they've negotiated with every insurance company all these substantial discounts, or the insurance companies have foisted it upon them, fair or unfair. So a $100 procedure, is going to cost the insurance, the hospital will be reimbursed $25. But if you don't have insurance, you're going to get the bill for the $100. Mm-hmm. And then if you can't pay it, you're left with either lawsuits where they start adding on attorney's fees, etc., or you're left with trying to file for bankruptcy.
Oh, it goes so fast to a collection agency.
Yeah.
It would make it
so it's another problem I have with the system. Because, again, I've seen it happen to people where, yes, you can get care if you don't have coverage, but you're expected to pay full price. It's like going into an auto dealership and buying the car at the sticker price. The only one who buys the car at the sticker price, under this scenario, is a person who can least afford it. Makes no sense whatsoever. They say there should be a law. Okay, what law should there be? There should be a law that if you're uninsured and you get your bill, you should receive a discount at least at the lowest discount level of the insurance companies they've negotiated with.
Well, if you look carefully at your bills, it will show you what was billed, what was paid, and then what's your part.
Right.
So what was paid by your insurance company should basically, if you were paying it yourself, be what you pay.
Right. And if you're not insured, you don't see that on your bill. You just see a bill.
Right.
A long bill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you can give the insurance company.
Thank you, Bulldog. Appreciate
I'll
it.
I'll let you go on with your rant, and I hope you see the bill and let me know when I'll sign it. Anyway.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Bulldog. So as with anything big, it comes down to a social movement if you're going to make massive changes. We all know how hard that is. We've all seen many presidents try to reform healthcare and fail. Okay? It's not easy. We've seen how tough it is.
It's bigger than all of us.
We've seen how tough it is to get gun control laws passed, even small ones that seem to make sense to almost everybody. So, it's not easy, and it's not like, okay, pick up a phone, call your legislator, and you're going to get relief. It's not going to happen. But the only way to change this is for it to become a public issue, an issue that people are complaining about, an issue that people are loud about. The one truth is, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, the types of insurance that we have now didn't exist. They were generally HMOs or, PPOs with like an 80-20 plan. Mm-hmm. They didn't have 5,000 options. You generally had those two types. And a lot of people would pick an HMO because unlike HMOs of today, there were plenty of HMOs, there probably still are today depending upon where you live in the country, that are wonderful, that all your doctors are going to be on, and the prices are less, and Might as well pick an HMO. I don't pick an HMO because who knows whether I'm going to need a doctor that's not on that plan, or I don't want that particular doctor. Mm-hmm. I want freedom. So, I have to pay for the PPO, which is always more expensive. But today, the PPOs are different, and, there's a lot more reasons to deny coverage, and there's a lot more insurance companies now practicing, in my opinion, medicine, whereas I don't think that really happened 25 years ago.
Well, the whole system was kind of different back then. I mean, if you look at insurance, it was a benefit. If you were just a kid starting off in a job, you probably didn't get medical benefits.
That's right.
You worked hard and you got to that job that offered benefits.
Often after 90 days.
So, yes. And only during open enrollment. No.
Right. Yeah, those things too. Right.
That's, yeah.
But look, back then we also didn't have COBRA. Now, COBRA's not the greatest thing because...
Who can pay for that?
The prices aren't correct. Well, I had somebody this week, and I said, look, take your COBRA, pay that horrible premium, because they had another job lined up. Pay that horrible premium if you have to for the next 3 months. It's horrible.
It is, yeah.
But don't let your coverage lapse, because that's when insurance companies can now hit you with those pre-existing conditions and deny coverage for a year or raise your rates. Keep your coverage intact almost at any cost. But
when
right.
I go purchase a car, they don't tell me I can have it late in a year or pay for it, but you can't have it for a year.
That's right.
That's amazing.
Well, they did. Again, now they did. I will. They did back then, because back then, the first time I bought a car, I went in and I ordered a car. And I said, what color do you want? Okay, do you want this option or that package? And my father taught me how to buy a car, making sure the salesman told you every single option available so you can make your decision and not lose out on something. You don't buy a car that way these days.
No.
I like it better these days.
Well, it'd be fun to go go order one.
But, and then you'd have to wait 8 to 10 or 12 weeks until you got a call from the dealer. Hey, your car just came in. Your car. Not a car on the lot. Your car came in. So, look, things change. We have 1 minute. And I did not get to the Starbucks protest issue. Maybe we can talk about it next week.
Oh, it'll still be topical, I'm sure.
It'll still be topical. But for now, look, this is Stuart Address. I practice lots of types of civil litigation and civil law. If you need a lawyer, give us a call at 781-8003. Our office is in Stuart. And feel free next Friday, give us a call here, and maybe you can get an answer for free. Just call us and ask a lawyer.
You need to send a shout out to your paralegal.
Oh, gosh. The one episode I don't do that. Cheryl, if you're listening, I know we're getting new carpeting in the office tomorrow. Thank you for packing up the entire office without me. I hate that kind of work. And orchestrating tomorrow to make sure that when I come in on Monday, I have a brand new carpeting.
Wow, it'll be beautiful.
Thank you, Cheryl.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.